In today's instalment we play Guess the Car.
Any idea what that is?
I give some consumer advice.
Word of warning to any other BMW E31 owners.
I curse the local wildlife.
Bloody seagulls.
And the BMW fights back.
What to do? And it's just cut me for good measure. Today I'm going to share with you progress over the last few weeks on Project Rust. That's the work being done here in the workshop behind me at Auto Resto on my BMW E31 8 Series. The car has been here now for nearly 4 months, and even though we're coming towards the end of the project, the car is still throwing up some hidden nuggets that we weren't expecting. So keep watching to find out what they are. In today's episode, I'm also going to give you another brief tour of other projects underway here at the workshop. One viewer gets a shout out, and at the end of the episode, as I have done in previous ones, you'll be able to see a detailed stills images of all the work that's been done. I hope you enjoy. I'm Craig and you're watching Craig on Cars. So here's the car in all its glory. We can see that it's completely up off the ground now and jacked up on both front and back, and it's missing its wheels. Well, why is that? Well, in an earlier instalment I showed you the state of the wheels, and in the end decided that having gone through all the effort of all this work being done, it made sense for the wheels to be refurbed. So they've been sent off for refurb, and I'm really excited to see what they're like when they come back. But in the meantime, let me show you the work that's been done since the last instalment. So let's start at the back of the car and in the boot. In an earlier instalment I showed you this area. At the time it still had the plastic reservoir which feeds the headlight washers at the front of the car. That's all been taken out now, and there's been some work done to address the light corrosion that was found in the well of the boot. As we can see, work is well underway. There's still a little bit that needs to be done. If I just go in a little bit, we can see that just here and here, but the main bit of the work was here, and actually that was the worst bit, around these two holes. So that area was completely cut out and a new piece put in. I've got the old piece here actually, so you can see even from this that this area here was the worst bit of corrosion. Now those holes are needed because this is where you fill up the plastic reservoir that lives there, and the pipes essentially come up from underneath and go into it. So there's been new holes put in, and this is actually the little artistic template that the guys used. In an earlier segment I showed you the sill on the driver's side of the car and some close-up images where we could see that all along this seam edge there were very minor bubbling, so we have now cleaned that back, as you can see, and that's all looking really good. So that will be prepped for paint. So while I'm here today, I'm just going to inspect the front edge of the bonnet and have a look behind the rubber seal, thanks to a tip from a viewer named Bob, who after watching the last video got in touch to say that he's also undergoing a restoration project on his 8 Series and actually found some quite bad corrosion hiding behind this rubber seal all the way along the front edge of the bonnet. Now, having had a good look behind that today, I'm happy to report that it's looking really good. There's very minimal signs of any corrosion. What we have found is that just under this little lip here, there's a very small bit which the guys here will just take a quick look at. But other than that, the only thing that we've found again behind here is just such minor spider webbing or bubbling that it doesn't really warrant any further inspection at this point, especially as considering over the last few weeks I've been trying to decide whether, whilst it's here, I take the front wings and front bumper off whilst all the work at the back end of the car is being done. But I've decided that no, for now we're just going to leave it as it is. In a few years time, when no doubt the the engine is going to need some deep servicing, that the front end will be looked at that point. For now, everything on the front end is looking really strong. There's no outward signs of corrosion. I'm sure there will be some somewhere in the front subframe around the engine and components, but for now we're just going to leave it as it is. So thank you, Bob, for the tip to check, and I hope your restoration picks up pace again. More bad news. In the last instalment, I showed you briefly the work that was going to be done in this area, and at the time it looked like it was going to be not that big a job at all. Most noticeably on the driver's door is just on the edge here. You can see the corrosion poking on the corner. Again, it's not bad at all. Now that some investigative work has been undertaken, we can see where the skin has been peeled back along here and just slightly up there. In actual fact, the rust is a lot worse than we initially thought. It's creeping up here, but also it's going all the way across the bottom and carries on going further than we've currently peeled back. Now that this rust has been discovered, we need to have a think about what we do next. We've got several options. Either we find a new door, which is going to be expensive. So the most pragmatic solution seems to be we'll probably cut back a tiny bit further, clean it back as best we can, put some rust treatment on there, fabricate a new bit of metal along the lip, and finish it off obviously with the filler, and it should make the door look like new and last for many years. So back to the rear jacking points now. In the last instalment I showed you this area and we could see that it had been completely rebuilt and repaired and it was looking good, but there was one question that I asked everybody, and that was, did anybody notice a piece of work that still needed to be done in this area? Well, we can see that that's been done now, and that is that the hole has been put back in. Obviously when the sill covers go back on, there's that black plastic square that will clip back up into that area. A quick update on what else is going on here at the Auto Resto workshop. This is the Ford Escort RS 2000 that I showed you in the last instalment, and since I was last here the floor has been completely taken out, so work is undergoing on that one. Now the next car is a new visitor to the workshop. Any idea what that is? If I go around to the side it'll become much more clear. It's a Morris Marina, and that's in for a little bit of TLC. Interesting actually how on the outside it looks not bad, but look just how rusted out that is there, look, behind the headlights and on that side. Now they're waiting for some new panels to arrive on this one, and apparently they're quite difficult to source. So if you're watching and know how to get hold of some body panels for a Morris Marina, leave a comment below and I'll pass it on to the guys here. And finally there's one other thing that I want to show you, and that's in the paint booth. So the Mercedes 190E that I showed you last time has moved along an awful long way since I was last here. The windows are now back in, the interior is back in, as you can see all the lights are all back in, and that's looking really good. So it won't be long before that one's going back to its owner. And as if by magic the job is done. Clearly it's not magic. It's been a week since the last segment was filmed, and the workshop have been hard at work cleaning this all back, and we can see it's been taken back to metal. They've gone a little bit further up here, and further along here, as far as they felt comfortable doing so without losing the integrity in the door. If I just show you, they've cut the corner out, so this is the piece that's been cut out of the corner, and a new piece welded in, which I'll show you on the outer skin in a second. But this is the inside of that piece, and we can see the corrosion that was evident in the last segment. So yeah, it's been redone, cleaned back as best as possible, and obviously this will be repainted when the car goes in for paint. It seems to be the most pragmatic solution to the problem, without buying a new door, which is just too expensive, and this should see the door be as good as new and stay that way for many years to come yet anyway. Here's the outer skin of the driver's door, and we can see the filler here where the repair has been done, and this is the same piece of metal that I just showed you for the inside, but it's the outer side of it, and we can see, if I bring it a bit closer, the pitting that was behind the paint and coming through from the rust on the inside. Now the interesting thing that we've discovered with the door here, as mentioned in an earlier installment on the project, we found on other areas of the car when the paintwork has been taken back, how the car has clearly had paintwork done on it in the past, even though there's absolutely no mention of it in any of the paperwork that came with the car when I bought it. What we can see here again is the different rings where we can see earlier primer and paint levels. We saw it on the top of the A-pillar for the windscreen, and we've seen it on the roof. But what we have seen in this piece of metal, I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick it up, is just within the pitting there's a tiny bit of white, which would suggest earlier filler. So perhaps there has been some rust coming up in the past, several years ago, before I bought the car, and it's just been sanded back, a bit of filler being whacked in and then repainted. This is the rear edge of the rear wheel arch on the driver's side. On the passenger's side, this is the section where across here we cut it completely out, and a new piece was put in. On this side it wasn't anywhere near as bad, but there was just a very slight touch of bubbling around here. So upon taking it back to this level, what they then discovered, just in this section here, there's a little bit of pitting, but on the inside edge of that there was some corrosion under the paint all the way along, so that's also being addressed.
So here we are again at the rear end of the car, and even though we're coming towards the end of the project, are unfortunately discovering more problems. Now, in an earlier installment I took great delight in telling you that once we'd taken the rear bumper off, everything back here was looking quite good, other than the rear carrier and brackets being sent off for sandblasting and powder coating. There was just a little bit of sort of minor work to be done, which included wire brushing these 4 bolts, cleaning up around where the brackets go in, and on this lower edge there, cleaning that back a little bit where there was a tiny bit of surface corrosion, and all that has been done and is looking good. What we've since discovered after working in this area is actually this big hunk of metal here, this black thing. If you look closely on the edge there and on that edge there, is starting to rust, and also if we look under there, look at that, and under there there's more rust. I think what the plan of action here is going to be is that this black thing is going to be taken off. I'm not really sure what its purpose is. Is this for a tow bar? A tow bar on an 8 Series? Not sure about that. By taking that off, that will enable the team here to get to those 2 areas and address them. I think it's worth doing, seeing as we've come this far.
One area of the car that I was convinced needed no attention at all when I dropped it off here 4 months ago was the sunroof panel. There were absolutely no outward signs at all of any corrosion. The sunroof panel is known on the BMW E31 to rust, particularly along the front edge. Now the sunroof panel has been taken off the car as part of the wider job of fixing the rust on the roof itself, and so the opportunity has been taken just to take a closer look at it, and that has thrown up another treat that the car has wanted to give us, and that is that it's actually quite badly rusted under the skin. So I'm going to show you that now. What we can see is on all four edges, but I'll show you closely on each one. So this is the back edge of the panel. It's quite bad along here. If I turn it over, I can show you on getting closer to the front on this edge, and on this side as well. It gets worse, and pretty much all the way across the front edge there's some quite deep-seated corrosion, and it's in between the seams of the two pieces of metal. So again, another decision to make. I'm going to go home tonight and see if there's do a bit of research and see if there's new panels available and how much they are. In terms of repairing it, it's going to be quite tricky because of where it is and the seams where they join. It could be cut out and new metal put in, but it's going to be such a fiddly job. It may be cheaper overall just to buy a new panel. But that decision obviously will have to come after I've done some research. Word of warning to any other BMW E31 owners: if you've got a sunroof in your car and outwardly it looks absolutely fine, don't be so sure. You might be getting a treat like I am one day. Yeah, another job to do, and it's just cut me for good measure. Great. But whilst I'm in the paint booth, another cool car behind me, a Mercedes 230CE. And it's got a hole right by there. In an earlier segment, this instalment, I showed you this segment here. There was a big black piece of metal sitting there, and we discovered some corrosion that was behind that and underneath in this section here and on the other side. That's now been removed, and that corrosion has been addressed, along with what we found across this ledge and underneath all along there. I'm not nimble enough to get under the car, so stick around to the end of the episode to see some stills images from that work being done. Well worth seeing. Really interesting actually to see how the car has hidden rust in unusual areas. What I can show you is the piece of black metal that was taken off. That's here. It's really heavy. I wasn't sure originally what this was for. I did wonder whether it was for a tow bar, given the little bit that's sticking off the bottom, and I was hoping that I could get away with not putting it back on the car to save some weight, because it is really heavy. Actually, it turns out after some further research that this is for a towing eye to be screwed into here if ever you need to be towed from the rear. So that is going to have to go back onto the car and will be sandblasted and repainted and go back on up there. In the weeks leading up to the car coming into the workshop for the Rust project to begin, we'd had some quite big storms, and I'd noticed that when I'd opened the boot after some rain, that in this area underneath the right hand side battery we had some water. So we're going to try and find out where that water is getting in. Been playing around with the seals, and they're in themselves absolutely fine, so I suspect the culprit is this rear light unit. But one thing that we've noticed by removing the seals is that across this ledge here we've got some minor corrosion. I'll show you some close-up images of that now. So seeing as especially as this piece here needs to be repainted because of what's been done underneath, we'll just get this cleaned up all along here and sorted out. So that brings us to the end of this instalment. With all the surprises the car has given us over the last few weeks, it's clearly got a sense of humour. On the one hand, the project has been going really well and there's an end in sight. On the other hand, we've been having surprises with the extra work at the back end of the car and the sunroof and the driver's door. So some low points, but definitely positive step forward towards the end of the project. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you have done, please hit that like button, and if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of future content when it goes live. The detailed stills images of what's been done over the last few weeks and covered in this episode is yet to come, so stick around for that, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. The car has been here now for 4 months. Bloody seagulls. Throwing up a few little treats for us as we near the end. Oh, yes, that's right. Today I'm going to share with you progress that's been made over the last few weeks. Bloody vans, will you please go away?